And immediately following that, we'd have the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to assemble here today to go about the business of our city. Father, we ask that you will look favorably upon us, the things that are said, the things that are done. Everything that we do, we do it to the glory of you. For as we have said so many times, Father, we know that the things that we have belong to you. We are just entrusted to do the best we can with what we have to work with. We thank you, Father, for this day, for all the many blessings that you so generously share amongst us each and every day. Thank you for your Son. We ask these things in his name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item is the adoption of the business agenda. If there are any conflicts or items that are on the agenda, we need to bring those up at this time. If no one has a conflict, after you've had the opportunity to review, we will need a motion to approve the agenda as it is presented. Motion is made by Councilman Bell. Do his second by Mr. Jackson. Is there any more discussion on the matter? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The agenda would be approved as it is presented. We have two individuals this evening that have signed up for public comment, the first being Mr. Ephraim Brodsky. Good evening, Mr. Brodsky.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
$2.1 million. That's the gap between our fully operational budget and our actual revenues. This budget raises the tax by 4 cents, which generates a little over $500,000. So now we have a $1.6 million gap. Any financial advisor would tell you, do not use your fund balance to balance a fully operational budget, especially since you've done so each of the past 2 years. Any financial advisor would tell you that you need to make serious cuts. You can't afford to pay 150 plus employees. It's just math. Simple math. You don't need a college degree to figure out that these numbers don't work. What happens next year? Another tax increase. What about the year after that? Another tax increase. Costs never go down. We all know that. We've yet to hear any new ideas from our city government. Do all conversations happen behind closed doors? You might not like my ideas, but at least I've been offering some. In every community, there exists a fundamental dynamic between givers and takers. The givers are those who shoulder the lion's share of our tax burden. They show up on evenings and weekends to coach youth sports. They staff our food banks and serve on our fellowship committees. They are the economic and civic engine that keeps our community running. The takers are our less advantaged neighbors who rely on government assistance, community aid, and the social safety net programs that we collectively provide. Both roles are part of every functioning society. Let's be clear about what our givers contribute. They fund our schools, our emergency services, our infrastructure through their tax dollars. They volunteer thousands of hours annually, filling gaps that the government can't or won't address. They maintain the civic fabric through their participation, their resources, and their commitment to something larger than themselves. These are the people who make our community work. And yes, takers serve a legitimate function in this equation. A compassionate society recognizes that people fall on hard times, that circumstances beyond individual control create need, and that we have a moral obligation to provide support. This is the social contract. Givers enable this support, and most do so willingly, understanding that a healthy community lifts up those who struggle. But here's where the contract breaks down, when the givers receive nothing in return. Our city faces a $2.1 million budget gap. You know what's not in this budget? Road maintenance. Not 1 cent other than the Powell bill allocation has been budgeted for road maintenance. Building maintenance. Our department heads requested $6 million worth of repairs that aren't being funded by this budget. And the only department facing actual dollar cuts? Parks and Recreation. Let that sink in. The roads our givers drive to work are crumbling. The public buildings they funded are deteriorating. The parks where they spend countless hours volunteering to coach youth sports, cut. Yet somehow we're allocating $5.3 million to fund an optional municipal police department. Now I want you to consider something. Without our municipal police department, we would be covered by the county sheriff's office. We already pay for that coverage through our county tax line. We're already funding law enforcement at the county level. As I have said many times before, we're essentially paying twice. Once to the county for coverage we'd receive anyway, and again to the city for a parallel department that duplicates these services. Is that $5.3 million expenditure defensible when our roads have potholes that could swallow a tire? When our recreation centers need repairs? When our parks, the spaces that serve every resident, giver and taker alike, are being cut? This budget tells a story about priorities, and it's not a flattering one. It says that bureaucratic expansion matters more than basic infrastructure. It says that redundancy is acceptable while community spaces suffer. Most troublingly, it says that the givers who fuel this community with their taxes and their time don't matter enough to maintain the roads they drive or the parks their children play in. Our givers deserve better. Our entire community deserves better. It's time to realign our priorities and ask ourselves, are we building the community we want, or are we just funding the government that we've always had? Public safety is an illusion. We don't need 3 parallel police agencies operating out of Roanoke Rapids. The state troopers write tons of tickets in town, and the sheriffs are more than capable of responding to our calls. As I drive through the streets of Roanoke Rapids, I see dozens of yard signs calling for Tyree Davis or Tracy Story in the upcoming sheriff's election. Every citizen with a sign has spoken. We want the sheriff to protect us. Give the people what they want. Fix our roads. Fix our recreation centers. Invest in our people. Stop the bleeding. Lower our taxes. Let the sheriff protect us. The givers have given enough. At this point, there's nothing left to give. With my last 20 seconds, I included my tax bill here. I paid $1,500 last year to the county. What did they give me personally? 0. I got nothing from them. All of their optional services they offer, the optional amenities, they're only open during normal business hours. I live and work in Roanoke Rapids. I can't make it there by 5. They're not open on weekends. What are they giving me? Nothing. But I'm paying. We're all paying.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brodsky. Mr. Johnson, when you come forward, if you would, state your name and where you live.
Basically, you can talk about it, particularly incident that brought something to my mind. I wasn't aware of police interactions with business when we have this program. First, I wanted to comment. I appreciate the council starting off the meeting with prayer and pledge of allegiance. I appreciate it. And I believe the pledge of allegiance, part of it is one nation under God, under God's protection of His law. The understanding is that our law, man's law, is the word of God. But what I want to talk about is an incident that happened. I was out of town. I gave copies to the local council. And George Ball, who was, some of you might know, ran Sears for some years ago. Dash Ford Sears. Between the two of us, got 80 years of retail experience dealing with customers. George knows how to work with customers. He called me out of town. He said a customer, not just in their phone, but threatening him. At the time, the police officer was in the store. George called with something serious. He says threatening. I believe it. And that was with the police officer there. He felt so threatened. There's that term, perceived threat. He called 911 with an individual police officer standing there. He didn't feel safe. He felt threatened. A couple of police officers did respond. And if any of you, I believe it's still on the internet, the incident video takes 6 minutes. No, it was more than rude, threatening. A lot of F this, F that, do this. Asked me, asked my wife, messed the place up, asked the police officer to shoot him, did he shoot him? Total disregard. It was a serious incident. While principle they follow is allow that individual to vent all they want. They do a good job with that. The second way of doing it, a friend of mine runs a business in Portsmouth, and he shared the same incident. Now, the fellow was arguing about, not arguing, demanding a refund. I have a new refund policy. That's my policy. What the Attorney General's office, I found out that what a warranty reads is whatever the retailer says, as long as it's documented and it's right. Could you show I have a document inside the counter where the person signed and accept my order, this individual did. But still demanding a refund. I'll take it in his license. But anyway, George, refund is going to anyway get rid of it. But the police will not remove the threat. I think it's good, it should have been otherwise. Well, my friend in Portsmouth had a similar situation. He was showed the same thing. A refund of said, "Well, here's law enforcement." They came to the door, pointed at me, over the guy. I think the county was much better. Guys, I'm open on Main Street, it's a private business, open to the public, but if I'm not mistaken, we can refuse service to anybody. He was a fellow I didn't want there. I'm not mad at the guy, don't care. I just don't want that attitude in my business. Asking what do we have law enforcement for if not to get rid of these slaves? That's what I'm asking. I'm not really illegal there. My business open to any law enforcement agency anytime. If I'm doing something wrong, tell me, tell us. I'm just asking for help and notice that I think some of you recognize all battle plans disappear the first shot.
Mr. Johnson, you got about 15 more seconds, so.
That's pretty much what I'm saying, is reevaluate the policy of law enforcement agencies and disgruntled customers. More concerned about the business, I think everybody likes it.
Okay, thank you, sir. We do have two individuals that signed up for unscheduled public comment. Mr. Hedgebeth. Mr. Hedgebeth.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening to y'all. My name is Mike Hedgebeth. I live at 50 Franklin Street, Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. And what I'd like to address is that I read on RR-SPIN, I think it was about maybe a week or maybe 2 weeks ago, about this budget crisis that we have here in Roanoke Rapids. And my concern is that the statement came up and it said that the city of Roanoke Rapids, and if I'm incorrect, you can correct me, but it said that the city of Roanoke Rapids was paying gas prices anywhere from $4.01 to $4.29 per gallon. Now, if that's the case, that's the same thing I'm paying as a retailer. I think like everybody else in this room here, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the question that I have here, well, really is a couple of questions. First of all, I retired from education, and part of the responsibilities that I had in education was school bus transportation. And that included plotting where every single child lived in every single school district or every single area of the county and of the state and of the city. And the thing about it is that the transportation fuel came from state allotments. And I know that for a fact because I work with it. And if a local school district can purchase transportation fuel from the state under state contract, my question is, why are we paying $4 to $4.29 a gallon? Because I dare say that when I ride by the highway patrol that I see them filling up right there at their substation. They're filling up their cars there. So I'm guessing maybe they're, on state contract. But I know it's a state agency, so I understand that. But the question that I got, if we're paying $4.01 to $4.29 a gallon to the local distribution person here, because I've seen the law enforcement cars parked throughout town, and I know we only have one person here who actually owns all of them, which that's neither here nor there. But the question comes up is that if we're paying $4.01 to $4.29, you mean to tell me that the city of Roanoke Rapids is not being given a discount when you're fueling every single, well, not every single, but the majority of the cars, city cars, law enforcement, everything else in Roanoke Rapids? That's a question that I have. And that may be a budget issue, I don't know. But whether it is or whether it isn't, it needs to be looked into. It should be a different way as far as us with the monies. The next thing that comes up is...
Mr. Edgefield, I think your 3 minutes is about it.
All right. Well, anyway, though,
on
state contract.
Okay. I know you had several questions, and I know you'd like to have some answers for them. We generally don't have discussions on that during this meeting, but everybody heard your questions, so see if somebody can't respond to them. Thank you for your comments. Yes, sir. Next individual is Kimberly, is it Langfrey? I'm sorry, Larry.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Kimberly Lowry. I live over in South Rosemary on Ivy Street. To Mr. Brodsky's point, giver. Sick of it. Y'all have got me given to the point I can't even afford groceries. My property has gone way up in value, and it ain't no better than it was 10 years ago. That is all strictly based on the poor decisions made by this council with that theater. I understand we cannot go backwards, but y'all got to go forward. You cannot keep shaking the secret money tree you think is in my backyard, because I ain't got it. I struggle every day to balance my budget, and I ain't got no emergency fund. You got to figure it out. Don't keep dipping into that fund. Do you not see all these little towns on the news now? Every one of them is going under because they've been dipping into that fund. They don't get their crap in order. They don't budget their town like you have to budget your frickin' house. I don't have a money tree. Go to this money tree. Figure out how many of these people are in Roanoke Rapids that don't pay their ding-dang taxes. Go get them. Go get those absentee landlords that have properties that have allowed them to go blighted to where we have people living in them, doing God knows what, with God knows whom. The property goes down. It costs us more money because we got to have cops going over there cleaning it out, firemen going over there risking their lives, going into these hellholes that people have been living in with no fire power, no electricity, and no business being there. You can go over to Food Line to buy you some eggs if you can afford them, and stand right there and watch every house on that block that is boarded up with people sitting on the front porch like they own the thing, coming and going, and ain't nobody doing a dang thing about it. You want my money tree? You get those money trees first, and you balance the budget without bankrupting this town. When I moved into my house, I felt so safe in this town. My father kept telling me, don't move into South Rosemary. I did my research. There was no crime where I lived. I now will not go out of my house after dark. I will not answer my door to anyone I do not physically recognize. Y'all have got to get this town together. And I understand that Mr. Davis commented on the settlement, that he couldn't comment on the settlement. They don't call this place Rumor Rapids for nothing. You leave a vacuum, and everybody in this town has decided that every single one of you was in on something crooked. You probably were not. But you leave an information vacuum, and you do not provide some kind of information to the people, you get those kind of comments.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for your comments.
Amen. Amen, lady. I know I was late.
You can't speak right now. What did you want to sign up to speak?
Yes. My grandfather had this I passed this morning,
Can I do it?
and I've been in
Okay.
Greenville since 5:30 this morning.
We're gonna have a public hearing in about.
Yeah, we got a public hearing coming up a little later on the agenda, and you can speak then. Is that okay for you? Okay, all right. Sorry to interrupt you, but anyway.
We'll get you.
Which one of y'all was on the council when we bought the theater? That's what I thought.
Yeah, but guess who's still paying?
That's all right, ma'am, you've had your time. You've had your time too. Okay. All right. Approval of the council minutes. Need a motion to approve the May 19th, 2026 regular meeting minutes.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the May 19, 2026 regular city council meeting minutes as drafted.
Okay, motion by Ms. Bryant. Do you hear a second to her motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Steinbach. Any more discussion on the matter? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Minutes will be approved as they are presented. I call on the city manager now to give us some information about the public hearing that we're getting ready to move into.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just to set the stage, during our last meeting 2 weeks ago, a proposed budget was put before you prior to the June 1 deadline in accordance with the general statutes. That budget has been under public review, and the purpose of tonight's meeting, as required by the General Statutes 159-11, is to conduct a public hearing to receive comments on the spending priorities of the city. What we intend to do with that is to receive comments tonight and then process those comments or collect them and assemble them all, and then on Thursday, the City Council is scheduled to have a workshop at 10 o'clock in the morning here, and we will go through and identify revisions to the budget. Staff have been working since our last meeting to find some additional cuts and things like that we will talk about. But for tonight's purpose is to receive public comments. The mayor may establish time limits if he determines that to be appropriate. But typically we ask that if there's repetitive comments if you hear someone say your comment, then you don't have to come up and repeat it. So we will take everything into consideration, but again, the proposed budget process, we're scheduled right now to adopt a budget on June the 16th, which will be at our next meeting in 2 weeks. And then from there, move into really looking at the next fiscal year and some challenges that lie ahead. This budget is challenging. Our revenues, we're experiencing we have a projected revenue loss. And expenses have increased dramatically, and we know that there will be some tough decisions that will have to be made in the future. We also need to really protect our interests and advocate for our state-directed benefits, looking at legislation that the General Assembly is considering. We just learned last week that there's another new bill out, or proposed legislation that would further reduce our sales tax revenues effective October 1st, 2026. So, again, paying attention to what's happening at the state level with our legislatures and how that impacts our local revenues is significant. Over years and over time, we have experienced these cuts. We've experienced certain actions that the city has not, in turn, raised taxes to cover the deficit. Our staff have been making cuts every single year, and we're at a point now where we can't cut anything else without stopping an activity. and either stopping it or discontinuing or changing the way that things are done. It's a complex process, and there's city employees, there's families involved, and so in all fairness, there are some potential things that we can explore, but again, it's about trying to maintain a workforce as well to sustain services as we navigate what we are anticipating in the future. At this time, I've just asked that the mayor call for the public hearing to be opened and to receive those comments, and from there, we'll close the public hearing and move on.
Okay, at this time, I declare that the public hearing will be open. It's open to anyone that would like to come and speak on the matter. I do have a couple of comments that I'd like to read before individuals come forward. We appreciate the turnout that we have this evening, the community's engagement regarding the proposed budget, because we have quite a few people here that have signed up to speak tonight to ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to address the council within a reasonable time frame. I'm implementing the following rules for the public hearing. Each speaker would be limited to approximately 5 minutes. We're not going to be quite as rigid with that as we are with some other things, but just try not to monopolize the other people's times. We have a time clock, but we'll try to be as lenient as possible. A warning would be given 30 seconds before your time was up, and I'd ask you to summarize your comments at that time. If there's several people, a group, and you have repetitive statements, I would appreciate if you or the individuals who share the same position to appoint a spokesperson to speak on the group's behalf. Please direct all your comments to the council as a whole. Please state your name and address for the record when you begin your remarks. We also would like to ask that these speakers be respectful, and concise. If you have any written remarks, presentations, or supporting documents you would like for the council to review, please hand them to the city clerk so that they can be distributed to all of us. So at this time, I would ask any individuals that would like to come forward, and we do have a sign-up sheet, and the first individual on is Donna Patterson. Good evening, Ms. Patterson.
Okay, well, it's probably best for me to go by this paper I have here. First of all, I don't believe the budget can be cut, but I think there are things that we can do, the city can do to raise funds and raise money. Well, before raising taxes, to save money and improve things. I want the city to consider the fact that food, gas, and rent has increased, but pay and minimum wage has not. Citizens, businesses, organizations, and churches can step up to help. I know some already do, but many more can step up. Picking up trash, repairing homes, donating food, clothes, and helping the elderly with chores, etc. The city code enforcement is going to have to step up their game and start fining people for trash in dilapidated buildings and houses. Code enforcement hasn't minded getting on me in the past. The city can give people notices to fix or tear down buildings. If they won't or can't, the city can take them to court and either tear down the buildings or sell them to property developers. And if they have to, put liens on people's property to get the money back. I know it's been a problem for a long time, and it's passed on to the council, the city, but it's a hazard, and it's a waste of buildings for businesses. We need police, and we're going to need more as more businesses are built here, like the water park that's supposed to be coming, and we're going to have competitive pay and benefits. And as far as the sheriff's office, I think they're having a hard time keeping their own people because the pay is not as competitive as other places, and then we have the new jail, and they're going to need more guards for that. So, but there's something we can do. Well, I think it's a good idea. If we have people in the area sign up for a security camera program. And if we get enough people to sign up and we can get those in bulk and get them at a cheap price, and the people pay for them themselves, and we have volunteers put them in, then that would help probably with crime. That would help deter crime. So, and save the police a lot of time and money maybe. I don't think the fire people should be riding around in the truck to get lunch. That's another thing that could be cut out. And I was wondering how much unused property the city owns, and can it be sold or traded for something that we need? Can we get prisoners to do some jobs? They probably do things cheaper. Negotiate with private companies to do a job, either take bids or offer what you will pay. Maybe this will lead to have to pay less to permanent employees for their retirements. And I wanted to know, how often is inventory being done in the different city offices? Maybe this will help with losses. Change the leash laws for cats. There are too many feral and stray cats running around and having kittens left and right. I can go in depth about that, but I won't because I don't have time. Or get maybe a low-cost spay and neuter clinic here. Talk to the vets, or get a vet in. And it doesn't have to be a constant thing. It can be something like once a month or so. And it will save money with animal control, and it'll save money for the vets. Also, they carry and spread diseases and harm wildlife. They're a health hazard. So we really need some help on this. Tourism can help and harm, but I think the good outweighs the bad. I have many ideas on this subject, but no time to go into depth right now. We are in dire need of a fish hatchery. Besides bringing up our fish numbers, it would be a great place for tours and school visits for learning. So, I mean, Weldon's supposed to be the rockfish capital of the world. We have lakes in the river, and people could be coming here, but a lot of them have stopped coming here because you can't even keep the fish that you catch. So, and that's about it for now. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you for your comments. Ms. Balmer? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Susan Barmer. I have been a resident of Roanoke Rapids for the past 58 years. I have loved our town since the first time I rode down the avenue. My husband and I raised 2 children in the community. Excuse me, I get emotional about Roanoke Rapids. Both educated in the district. Like many people here, we love to talk about Roanoke Rapids, the way it was in the past, but I know we cannot go back. We need to look forward. I'm here to primarily support your consideration of Mr. Brodsky's bold alternative proposal to your budget that raises our taxes. His plan includes the abolishment of the Roanoke Rapids Police Department, with Halifax County Sheriff's Department assuming those duties. I must admit that I was very skeptical of this idea, but Mr. Brodsky has a compelling argument. On the surface, one would say, how could this work? This is absurd. But like most of our citizenry, I was not aware of all the changes in technology with local policing and the growth of our county sheriff's department. Mr. Brodsky did not just concoct this idea. It is being done all across our country, even in North Carolina. Now, certainly I'm not an expert and do not know everything about this proposal, but I think that it's worthy of discussion and consideration. Mr. Brodsky took a chance on Roanoke Rapids and moved his young family to our town. He certainly has a vested interest in Roanoke Rapids being a thriving community. One of the things that intrigues me about this idea is the fact that we now have a strong county sheriff's department led by a capable sheriff. If anyone could take on this responsibility of policing Roanoke Rapids and make it successful, they could under Tyree Davis's leadership. This just might be an opportune time to be bold. What really resonates with me is that the 27870 zip code has approximately 26,000 residents, which is more than one-half of the total population of Halifax County. Has Roanoke Rapids received its fair share from the county? Taxes. I dare say we have not. So you raise our taxes, you dip into the fund balance. I know it's a thankless job. What are your plans for the next years? What would be different? All goods and services are slated to increase due to the inflation we're experiencing in this country. Therefore, the city's expenses will increase each year, requiring more increases or cuts. And I don't think we should bank on a water park that may or may not open in 2029 to save us. It's time for some forward thinking for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Balmer. Mr. Hedgepeth?
Good evening again. My name is Mike Hedgepeth. I live at 50 Franklin Street, Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. And I hadn't planned on really talking about this, but before I get into it, I can't even get a Domino's pizza. You want to laugh about it and all like that, and it's fine with me, but I'm going to tell you something. It's a disgrace. I can't have a Domino's pizza sent to my house at 50 Franklin Street because I live in what's classified as a crime zone. When I called and they told me that, I told my wife, I said, well, that does it with Domino's. So anyway, but the bottom line is I was born and raised here myself too. And I don't know everybody on this council. I don't need to know you. What I do need to know is that you're representing the people of Roanoke Rapids the way that you should be representing them and that you're doing your job. I will say that. The thing that I have a problem with is that you want to talk about taxes. First of all, I'm against taxes in any form. I am very conservative as far as that goes. The reason, but I'm not dumb enough to think that the city, the state, the county, and the federal government can provide the quote goods and services that we need without us paying taxes. I know that. I realize that. But the problem is that every time that they want to come up, anybody, and you can read the local news, Raleigh School Board last night and Raleigh City Council raised property taxes. Cary raised property taxes. Wake Forest, Apex. Now you're talking about Roanoke Rapids and you're going, that's where they want to do it. You know why they raise property taxes? Because it's a daggone good source of income. Because they know that they're going to get your money, not your money, but our money, and for y'all to equally use. And it's not that I'm against paying property taxes, which I am, but I'm against personal income taxes too. But that's neither here nor there. But what I am going to mention is, and I'll bring this up, and this is not going to be popular either, but I don't really care because I'm not here for a popularity contest. If you're going to have any kind of tax at all whatsoever, you need to have a city-wide sales tax. And I know that that's not what everybody wants to hear. But let me tell you why I'm for it. I'm for a city-wide sales tax because every single individual sitting in this room, anytime you go, I don't care where it is, you're going to pay a sales tax. That includes not only here in Roanoke Rapids. Look, I can go up to Virginia. You know what I'm paying? Sales taxes. I can go down here to Rocky Mount and go to Raleigh and go down to the beach. Everything I'm doing, I'm paying sales tax. Right? And whether you want to believe that or not, that's the truth. We pay sales tax. But the reason I'm for sales tax, and I'm going to tell you straight up, I'm for sales tax because every single individual in the city of Roanoke Rapids is going to pay a sales tax. Everybody. And they should be. And I'm going to tell you why so much, and I won't get into this, but this is one of the main reasons. I know that people that own property in Roanoke Rapids for rental, they probably have it figured out within what their property is for what they're renting it for. I'm sure that they probably include what their costs are, and that would include, city, county taxes, state taxes, etc. I understand all that. But let me tell you what I have observed, and this is the honest truth. And you can go back and check Roanoke Rapids City police records if you would like to. I live over there right across from what is still known as the Hilltop Trailer Court. For years it wasn't nothing but a slum. That's all it is. It's just like the lady that was talking a few minutes ago about downtown Roanoke Rapids, right across from Food Line. Coming in, those dilapidated houses have been there for years. I had a great aunt that lives in one of them that's still standing, that's boarded up. Anytime you want to go to, you see people sitting in there. And not only talking about that, but let's talk about the house on First Street. That's the drug house. Everybody in town that's within the drug cartel or the drug culture knows that's where they go to get their drugs. But evidently, we don't have anybody else that does know it. But I will tell you this, but as far as the sales tax, to get back to that, for 30 years, I sat across from Hilltop Trailer Court watching the drug traffic going in and out, watching the people smoking dope, smelling the dope.
Mr. Hedgepeth?
Well, please. I'll be quick.
I know that's okay. I mean, but you brought up some good points, and if you can go ahead and summarize that.
I'm going to close it right now. I'm almost closing.
Thank you, sir.
I promise. Yes, sir. And if I was rude to you, forgive me, because I'm not that way. But anyway, though, to get to the point, I've seen it. If they can go out and buy, which I know they've gotten groceries, I've even taken groceries over there. We've taken Christmas stuff over there for the children and all that, and I'm not saying that to toot my horn. But what I am saying is that if everybody in town needs to pay a sales tax. I don't care if you feel like you're entitled or not. If you're entitled to everything, then you're entitled to pay a sales tax. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hedgepeth. Kimberly?
Thank you for hosting me again. Kimberly Lowry, 1712 Ivy Street, South Rosemary. I specifically want to talk about the tax. Our property valuations were crazy in the last go-round. Our taxes are just ridiculous. What you're doing is you have an old population that the majority of us live in very old houses. It's extremely difficult to maintain a very old house. It costs a lot. It's not a new build, everything ain't working right. The floors ain't even, the walls ain't even, the crawl spaces are nasty, roofs need redone. When you all raise these values so high and raise our taxes again, you're going to have even more houses go into blight because people will not be able to afford the maintenance of an old house. My house was built in the late 1930s. It cost me twice as much to have maintenance done as someone in a new build in Becker Farms. I can't afford that if you keep raising my valuation and my taxes. I want to keep my house nice. I worked hard to get that house. I didn't grow up here. I chose to live here. My daddy worked for this city. I chose to live here because it was such a nice place with such great people and a great community spirit. That has gone. I don't know where y'all live, but in my neighborhood, we stay in our houses with our doors locked. Mr. Hedgepeth's situation of saying that everybody needs to have a sales tax, you get skin in the game, you care how your neighborhood looks. You got about 20,000 people who own property, and you got about 8 who pay the bill. Nobody got skin in the game. You got 15,000 people who are just takers and getting whatever they can get, and you got 7 paying the bill. Those 7 are going to have to let their properties go because they're not going to be able to afford it anymore. I have a very old house that I want to keep very nice. But you keep taxing me, and I'm not going to be able to. And my choice will be, let my property become Madison, Monroe, and Henry Street, or get out of town. And then you lose someone who is willing to pay their taxes. You cannot keep squeezing us. You got to find another way to get your money. It can't be 7,000 or 8,000 people who are responsible and pay their taxes footing it all every time you turn around. And do not count on a water park, because we know how that went the last time. And that will also drive up property prices.
Thank you, ma'am. And Mr. Brodsky.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Ephraim Brodsky. I live at 936 East 7th Street. No prepared speech. You have that already. I'm just going to speak from the heart. I moved here to Roanoke Rapids 4.5 years ago, and I had only been here once prior to that, in 2013, when my wife and I were still dating. We came here the one time. I met her parents. I went to her house, and I said, you know what? There's nothing there for me. I'm never going to go back to Roanoke Rapids. But then something happened. COVID happened. COVID happened, and it made our world very, very small. We lived in a small apartment in New York, and that became even smaller with me working from home and 2 small children. So my wife decided that she wanted a house. She wanted a better life for our children. And she said, you know what? I had a pretty great childhood in Roanoke Rapids. How about my kids have that childhood where they get to grow up with all their friends and have the same people, that continuity? Because I never had that growing up in New York City. So she wanted that for our children. So we brought them here. We came, we took a chance on Roanoke Rapids. My wife said, you know what? We can make a difference. We can make this place better. We could come, we could show up, we could volunteer, and we do. You see, I don't see a lot of you out, but Kelly, I know her and her sons. Christina, I know her and her daughters, because they have children the same age as my children. So I see them out doing all the things. I volunteer. There were a lot of meetings I didn't come to because I was coaching basketball at Calvary on Tuesday nights for 3 months. Now, I'm a Jewish person, but I was still coaching at a church. Why? Because there aren't enough people coaching. In fact, for the 5th grade teams, we only had 3 teams this year because we didn't have enough coaches. So each team had 9 players, and not everybody got a lot of playing time because we don't have enough people volunteering. There's not enough givers here. So I do my part. I don't love coaching. I don't necessarily love to be around children that aren't mine, but I do it because there's nobody else to do it. And I'm not the only one. I have a neighbor that owns a big piping company in town, and he has 2 children the same age as my children. He works 75 hours a week for his regular job, and he coaches every single sport. He coaches, because he has kids 2 different ages, 2 soccer teams and the travel soccer team. He coaches flag football. He coaches baseball. Every single sport he coaches, and his business's name is on every single building that's being sponsored in town, and they do no business in town. All their business is in Wake County, but they're still sponsoring, and he's still showing up and showing out. But there aren't that many of us left. There aren't. It's the same parents coaching season after season. And we're not getting new people in. You see, because all your children, they all left. Mayor Pro Tem, I know your son. He's a friend of mine. He's been working remote since before COVID. He could have lived here. He still can. There's nothing here for him because you all aren't investing in the town. And it's easy. It's very easy to go back and blame the mistakes of the past, but we have to look forward. The theater debt is $1 million. This is a $2.1 million budget gap. That means without the theater debt, guess what? We're still in trouble. You can't blame everything on the theater. This water park might be the new theater. This budget is critically important. If you don't cut the police now, cutting it next year is going to hurt a lot more. Cutting it now removes the $5.3 million. And this is an election year. It gives the sheriff time to scale up and show us what he could do before November. Because if he can't do it, we have the opportunity to vote him out. Next year, we don't have that opportunity. 2 years from now, we don't have that opportunity. But now we can make them show us something. And don't sign any contract with the county. Because guess what? I had the city clerk send me every interlocal that Roanoke Rapids is currently in. There is not one single interlocal agreement that is active right now with the city that benefits us. Every single one is us giving something away. The county charges us 2% to give us our tax money. But we give the schools the tax money. We don't charge them 2% for the share we give them. We could, right? The county charges us. We could charge them. And you know, the county only used to charge us 1%. They raised it to 2%. They raised it to 1.5% 10 years ago. And then a couple years after that, they raised it to 2%. Are they really doing that much more work that we need to pay them $200,000 to cut a check? When I'm paying them $1,500 a year and they're giving me absolutely nothing? Listen, I challenge you all to this. If you want to draw from the fund balance, first, give up your government salaries. Anytime you're drawing from the fund balance to balance an operational budget, you should take the pay cut. That $55,000 should go back because you're failing us. You're failing this city by not balancing the budget. We need to make it work with what we have, not with what might be. Thoughts and prayers can't save the day, but your decisions can. Your vote matters today more than ever, more than Drury Beals Theater, more than any of that. This is the important budget for the future. This is it. This is what's going to decide it. Because if the roads keep crumbling and the parks keep getting cut, all the people like me are going to be gone. And then what's left? You know what's left? The people at Family Dollar saying, hey man, can I buy your groceries on my EBT so you could buy me a pack of cigarettes? Because I get that every time I go to Family Dollar. Thank you.
Mr. Williams? Thank you, Mr. Brodsky.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Troy Williams. I live at 130 Hunting Ridge Road. Did not grow up here in Roanoke Rapids. I moved here when I was about 17. Really loved Roanoke Rapids. Don't so much like what it has became. We do need to find a different way to try to raise money. I mean, I listen to some of the other stuff that people say about the taxes. I do agree with that. I never really thought about that. But it's a lot of other things that we can do as far as city ordinance. I guarantee you, if all of us get in our car, ride the food line, there's somebody there smoking a joint, and somebody parked in the fire lane. 2 city ordinance tickets. My wife is scared to go to Walmart after dark, or scared to go to food line after dark. Even if you go there during the daytime, there's 5 cars parked in the fire lane. Everywhere you go in Roanoke Rapids, somebody's smoking weed. I don't even like taking my grandkids out in public because of that. I don't smoke it, but if you want to do it at your house, that's your business. But I should not have to ride everywhere in Roanoke Rapids and smell it. Like I said, it's just a lot of different ways that we can raise money. I got a couple of complaints. I got a couple of things I want to say about the last meeting. The last meeting I listened to Kelly talk about the different things that's went up in this town over the past 10 or 15 years or whatever, what percentage, 30% or 100%, 300%. But my taxes went up 400%. 400%. And I added up, I told him I had 4 houses that went up $182,000 in 1 year. In 1 year. An average house in Roanoke Rapids went up anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. So I added up as 6,895 houses in Roanoke Rapids. So if every one of those houses went up just $10,000, that's $68 million more money this town should be collecting taxes off of. And I'm being told that we're not bringing in as much money. I don't understand that, because if each house has average going up just $10,000, which mine, I got 2 that went up 60-some thousand. I got 2 that went up 30-some thousand. So if mine went up that much, if you average $10,000 per house, that's $68 million that we need to be drawing money off of, and I don't understand where it's at. I also found out something else with the last meeting. I live on 130 Hunting Ridge Road. About 5 or 6 years ago, I was here arguing over this 3-story apartment complex that's beside my house. Did not want it there. Low-income housing in an area like that has never really made the neighborhood great. I have to sit in my house and smell weed in the evening time. And the people that voted up here for it or called the town councilmen the morning of the meeting and told them to vote for it even before they heard what the people had to say about it. If you ride over there right now, the grass is this tall. When they had that meeting, they come here and showed all these beautiful pictures how luxury this place is going to be. It's a dump. Looks good outside, but every time you turn around, somebody's out there smoking weed, people throwing trash in the road, the grass is this high. I had to call the city 3 times last year because the grass was too high. 3 times, right beside my house. I also found out that the building was over 6 foot taller than what it was supposed to be. When I brought it to their attention, they said, well, what are we supposed to do? Cut the top off of it? But when I built my garage in my backyard, my garage was 6 inches too tall. You know what they made me do? They made me backfill dirt 6 inches to raise it up. But then that place is over 6 foot too tall. And then I found out on the last meeting that they might not even be paying taxes because there's a loophole in the state where if they are, I think they said 0.01% nonprofit, they don't have to pay taxes. So here I am busting my butt every day to get out here. I keep good houses up. I keep good renters up. But then they fight to bring stuff like this that does not help the town. I just don't understand it. But I do think the idea about charging a percentage of city taxes, everybody in this city would have to pay that. Not just the people that own a piece of property. Everybody would have to pay it. I do like the fact of that. And I think that they need to start looking into riding to Walmart, riding to Food Line, riding to the Dollar General. Every time you smell somebody smoking weed, give them a city ordinance ticket. Every time somebody's parked in a fire zone, give them a city ordinance ticket. I mean, I just think those two things would help out this city a lot. You know, me and my wife, we went to Orlando, Florida last year for 2 weeks. I bet you my wife went to the grocery store down there 10 times because we didn't have to worry about, I'm talking about in Orlando, you look at the population there, but you didn't pull up to the grocery store in Orlando and see 5 cars parked in the parking lane. We thought we smelled weed one time in 2 weeks. You ride through Roanoke Rapids, you smell it one time every day.
Okay, your time about it.
Okay. Well, I just thank everybody for listening to me, and I didn't write a speech, but I just kind of spoke from the heart.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. That's all the people that had signed up, but is anybody else here that would like to speak? Sign the sheet before you leave, if you will.
Joey Davis, Roanoke Rapids, Raleigh Street. I spoke up here 2 weeks ago at the last meeting, and you're talking about making cuts and this, that, and the other. I have to make cuts and all. And I spoke on the theater. And lo and behold, 2 hours after I spoke, it was on both news organizations here in town that a water park was coming. Well, the water park, I hope it succeeds. But the only thing I'm saying is, you want to cut this, that, and the other, and you want to raise taxes, but yet and still, the city owes $5 million on something that was sold at a giveaway price. And we're having to pay for it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Davis, thank you. Was there anybody else that raised a hand? Okay, yes, sir. State your name.
City Council, City Manager, I'm Brian Forbes. I'm a commander with the Roanoke Valley Rescue Squad. I also live at 937 Wilson Street, so I'm a city resident, and I have been all my life. I live in the same house. I grew up, my parents moved out. I just wanted to remind the City Council that Roanoke Valley Rescue Squad is there, and it is an asset. And if we are struggling with budget, especially for emergency services, Roanoke Valley is staffed mostly by volunteers. So I wanted to remind you that we are still asking for that 2%, and I know there's a bunch of people here that don't want to hear that, but I will be willing to speak with any individual about why I think that 2% is extremely valuable for our city. We can turn that into much more than what we're asking for in return. So I would like to remind the council of that. We are volunteers. There is volunteers there. If we lose the squad, you lose that volunteer. You lose all of the volunteers. And those same jobs that they do will end up being city employees. And we all know what that does. It hits the retirement system. It will end up making the payroll go up and things of that nature. Putting that aside, just speaking as a citizen, I heard, I think Kelly or somebody may have mentioned it. I do think it's a good idea for the city to look into the idea of having a budget committee. I think that, just my personal opinion, we are right here on the cusp of having to make a decision, and there's not enough time to go through and fix the size problem that the city has. So I think any major thing you do other than raising taxes is going to be a knee-jerk reaction, and I just don't think that's a smart thing to do. I think what the city does need to do is create a budget committee to start working on these things a year out. I think in the short term, unfortunately, just in my opinion, I believe you're going to have to raise taxes to cover it until we can come up with a better plan. But that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes. Anybody else? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm a little less nervous now, but I want to say that the citizens have to step up and help with the city and help themselves and others. As far as the gas, with the police and the city department, there's that truck stop out there, like getting on 95 on the other side of Gaston. I even go there to buy my gas because it's cheaper than any gas station in town. And I don't see why y'all are paying that price either, because in Rocky Mountain and other places, it's a lot lower than any place here in town, even with your discount. As far as the fish hatchery I was speaking about, there's grants and foundations that could help pay for that. And the cops, they need more training. Our cops need more training. They need to learn how to deal with teenagers, because they just give them a bad attitude because they go up to them and try to push them around. And there needs to be random drug testing for the cops and fitness test.
I need for you to focus more on the budget.
Well, this kind of...
This is a budget hearing.
Okay, well, the fish hatchery would bring in money, and, okay, as far as that. And I do agree with the sales tax. I think there should be a sales tax instead of, that way everybody has to pay a little bit instead of putting it all on one person.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, my name is Mike Hitchpath, and I'm a resident of Roanoke Rapids, 50 Franklin Street. What I am saying is this right here, as far as taxes, I know that we go about and we talk about what former Mayor Bill did as far as in regards to the entertainment center. I understand that. Well, that was a good move or a bad move. History's going to write that out. Not me, not you. History's going to write that out. But the bottom line on the deal is that needs to be, that's in the past. That needs to be put behind us. Really it does. Because there's not one thing we can do about that until we take care of the present situation. With the Roanoke Valley Rescue Squad, a gentleman that talked about that over there. I was a child when they formed the Roanoke Valley Rescue Squad. The reason it was formed because we had 2 students that were home on the weekend, and they went up on the lake and they drowned. And volunteers, men volunteered from Roanoke Rapids that didn't know anything about saving bodies. And they were out there doing it. I can name people that have donated not only monies personally, but equipment to the rescue squad. And I'm sorry that the rescue squad is in this budget thing, because I can't imagine what you're having to deal with. Really, I can't. With all the other services and all the other mess that we have to deal with, because we don't use what we have, we don't enforce what we have, because we talk about, hey, look, they were talking, one of the last meetings that I was here, they were talking about, which has been years ago, Wayne Smith was sitting up here, they were talking about putting an ordinance in about tractor-trailer trucks parking on the avenue. Wayne Smith brought up, well, look, don't we already have that in ordinance? And they said, yeah, it's supposed to be a fine, but guess what? I can drive up Marshall Street, and every time there's a tractor-trailer truck parked there all the time, and I know the man's got to park there. At least he's working. so I ain't got no problem with that. He's working, so he's paying taxes. But to get back to it, as far as the taxes, we need to put all of that behind us, and we need to work as a group, because that's what you're here for. You were elected, I believe, I think that's the term, by the people of Roanoke Rapids, by your district. My question is, and I don't mean this disrespectful, to Mr. Strickland or to Mr. Steinbach, and I can go back in time and name the rest of them, but the only person that I've actually seen that has shown up at my house at 50 Franklin Street, and I've been living there for 30 years, was Mr. Ed Deese on the city council. He'd be riding through town. I could count on him riding through town, and he was still working full time, and he'd just come by and he'd want to say, well, Mike, how things going? I say, Mr. Deese, it's about the same, but I appreciate you stopping by to try to help us. But anyway, to get back to the taxes, that's what I'm talking about. If you're going to pay taxes, everybody pays same tax. No more freebies. I don't care. It's just like I said a few minutes ago. If you entitled, if you have entitlements, and I don't mean that disrespectful, although I got a question about it, but if you're entitled to something, you're entitled to pay taxes, so pay them with a sales tax. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Hedgesmith. That concludes the individuals that wanted to speak. Before I declare the public hearing closed, I would just like to say that this is by far the largest crowd we've ever had on a budget. Most time we don't have anybody. It always bothers me why the council forms a budget and we don't hear anything. We've heard a lot tonight. You've had a lot of really good ideas. The sales tax. Sales tax came up. Lance, you've been here long enough, you remember. We worked really hard trying to get it. We went to the legislature, Mr. Smith, myself, and the city manager, and we went several times. We were always told that the county had to be on board, and the county did finally come around, but we never could get it across the line. The property tax, we set the rate, but we don't put the appraisal on the property. I believe that was what you were alluding to. We don't set the rate, the value of the property. The county does that. We set the rate. That doesn't help you any, but it answers your question.
Add to you all, if you raise our taxes, the county's right behind you. That's how it happens every time.
I'm just saying the appraisal. Whatever your house is appraised for is set by the county employee. That's pretty much, I just wanted to bring up those two items. And I think the sales tax, I've always said that, everybody pays sales tax. If they're getting free this, free that, when they go to Family Dollar or they go somewhere to buy cigarettes or whatever they do, everybody's paying it. So it's the fairest tax. The more you spend, the more you pay. So I think that is a really good idea. So anyway, if there's no one else that wishes to speak at this time, I would declare that the public hearing be closed. Item 7 is the city manager's report.
Yes, sir, and I know we have some folks walking out, but I do sincerely thank everyone for their words. We are hearing what you said, taking notes, taking it all in, and a lot of great ideas that have come forward, and we appreciate that. Thank you for your time. We will have that budget workshop on Thursday in here at 10 o'clock. And then some other items that are going on, just wanted to highlight some things. The static baseball team, the Collegiate Wood Bat League, started their home games here on Friday night. They had a game Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. They have another home game tonight and tomorrow night at 7 o'clock p.m. The weekend generated over 1,000 attendees that were paid, or paying attendees that were not volunteers or players or someone else out there. And so consider that a success. It was a beautiful weekend, and get out and support the team. In other news, the hazard mitigation plan, that is a regional, I'm sorry, were you raising your hand? Okay. There's been a hazard mitigation plan under development that encompasses Halifax and Northampton County, a regional plan that's required by FEMA to be updated every 5 years. That has been under public review, and it's requested that all jurisdictions approve it by July the 10th, so that will be on an upcoming meeting. The Planning Department and Public Works themselves have received an influx of minimum housing or nuisance abatement complaints. We are processing those as they come in, and following the rules and regulations that we have to do in order to give notification before we can act to resolve many of these issues. Many of the issues that we see around the city are those that we may not be able to physically do something about other than encourage and direct the owners to do things, but most of the time it's important to stop and find out what it is that is preventing people from being able to fix up their property or to make it in compliance with minimum housing codes or any other type of abatement need or determined nuisance. So we do have to work with people, but again, a lot of it is there's a need for there seems to be an unmet need of helping people to physically make the improvements that are needed, and that's something that the city cannot do on its own. The North Carolina Department of Transportation, their planning division, has been discussing several corridor projects for the U.S. Highway 158 corridor. Planning staff have participated in a kickoff meeting, and there's several different projects intended to focus on safety, congestion, traffic reduction, and mobility improvements. Specifically, they call a supporting evaluation for reduced conflict intersections, or RCIs, along 158. They're looking at 4-lane and 6-lane concepts with focus on minimizing right-of-way acquisition that would potentially impact existing businesses. Alternatives are being evaluated for the 158 and 125 intersection, which is the one out there at Drugco, Walgreens, Dollar Tree, out there by the hospital, which is a multiple lane and couple signal intersection there, maintained by the state. Other intersections that are being looked at as well include Old Farm Road and Country Club Road, which is on the Weldon side, but with those intersections and where they intersect with 158. The Old Farm Road one is here in town, where Sheetz and the new 7-Eleven, Wendy's, and Burger King are on opposite corners. In the Parks and Recreation Department, it is getting hot, and there's a flyer in front of you about the fans. Box fans are available for eligible senior citizens, 60 and up, that have a health condition or a living situation that puts them at risk for a heat-related illness. And utilizing a grant, the Senior Center is able to purchase box fans, and they're available for pickup Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. Or you can call the Joe Story Senior Center for more information. Fans are limited to 1 per household. At the Aquatic Center, this upcoming Saturday will be opening day for the outdoor pool. The Roanoke Valley swim team is still collecting registrations until next week when their practices begin. I want to note that recently our natural gas utility provider conducted some type of a survey in the area and determined that there was a leak, a gas leak indicated, and that gas line serves the indoor pool. So when the utility provider completed repairs, that has had consequences that have impacted caused our indoor pool heater to malfunction, since it runs on the natural gas heat. So it remains out of order at this time. We are working to get that repaired. Unfortunately, it's something that we didn't have any control over, that was caused by a utility malfunction, and so that is impacting participation in like arthritis classes and things where the warm water is used for therapy. The library has a summer reading program. They're taking registrations for that for children ranging from pre-K to 8th grade. The program is called Unearth a Story. And so that will start June 8th through July the 10th. All participants will be eligible in different levels to enter into a raffle. And then on Tuesday, June the 9th at 11 o'clock, a representative from Sylvan Heights Bird Park will be hosting a program called When Dinosaurs Took Flight, and the participants will be able to interact or meet a live bird. The program is free and open to the public, but space is limited, so it'll be offered to those that are first come, first served at the library on Tuesday. At TJ Davis Rec Center, on Friday night, this upcoming Friday, the Roanoke Rapids High School will be hosting Project Graduation, basically providing an all-nighter or a safe opportunity for graduating seniors to have a safe place to celebrate their accomplishment. On behalf of the city, we want to wish all graduates, all the high schools and colleges and universities, wish them well and congratulate them in their 2026 graduation. The summer camps through TJ, the registration, we have some online, and then those camps will begin on June the 15th. So far, we have over 100 kids registered, and we expect that number to grow since the majority of students will be out of school by the end of this week. And at the Canal Museum on the 10th of June at 3, we'll be hosting a group from the Museum of Early Southern Decorative Arts, and they're out of the Winston-Salem area. They'll receive a guided tour. In the police department, yesterday we had 3 new sworn law enforcement officers begin employment, and then we have 2 that will graduate BLET in July. So assuming everything continues, that will bring us up to 5 by the end of July, but the 3 have started out and they've already completed BLET and have experience. Project Lifesaver is a program that's designed to help with a population of people that may walk away or not know generally we're finding that participants either have some sort of dementia or Alzheimer's or autism and have, I guess, some communication and awareness limitations. And so last week, an incident occurred and Project Lifesaver was successfully deployed. And this participating senior citizen was reported missing, and and our officers reacted, they responded and recovered the gentleman unharmed. And so if anyone wants to know any more information or registering your loved one or want to know more about it, contact the police department or Lieutenant Spraggins for more. Additionally, the drones have been helpful. We have an officer that has a pilot license for operating a drone, and that has been very helpful. We have been fortunate to use one from another agency to help out, but that drone has been deployed 5 times recently, and finding that increased need for in-house equipment. And also, National Night Out by the Police Department is planned for the first Tuesday in August. This happens every year. We want to make sure that all of our community and, of course, our police have an opportunity to attend that. It will be in Roanoke Rapids this year. And what we're proposing is that we move the city council meeting to Wednesday, August the 6th, or Wednesday, August the 5th, instead of Tuesday, the 4th, for maximum participation at National Night Out. In Public Works, I mentioned the nuisance abatement of significant cleanup was completed at 312 Monroe Street. Required 15 members of Public Works staff at 4.5 labor hours apiece to remove 3 truckloads or knuckle boom loads of junk and trash, and 24 other abatement activities were performed just recently last week. Our yard waste and storm debris transfer facility on Sam Powdary Road was inspected by the state last week, and we had a satisfactory inspection, and are appreciative of that and the efforts by Public Works to keep that facility in compliance with the state regulations. They're still, we have a vendor on site right now processing vegetative debris and grinding it for removal and hauling it away. And then the Main Street program will have Main Street will have a youth program next week, Monday through Thursday, and from 9 until 12:30 at City Hall. And as of today, there's 14 students registered to help learn more about starting a business and what it takes, and they'll make a little pitch there at the end of their week. And then also Main Street is still working on the Liberty on Main event, which will be held on July the 4th at Kirkwood during the day. We're accepting registration, and a program will be available for folks of all ages. The fire department has completed annual hydrant testing, and then our last but not least, our next council meeting will be on Tuesday, June the 16th. Subject to any questions you have, that completes my report.
This might be a question for Ms. Manning, the Recreation Department. Had a call a couple of weeks ago about the concrete. So I rode over and looked at it, and if you got any comment about anything that, are we still studying it to see what Mike could be doing? At skate park, at Emery Park.
I have reached out to the company that installed the concrete. They told me multiple times that they were going to show up. They have not shown up, and they have stopped contacting me.
So you haven't been able to get any kind of
Feedback from them about what they
idea about what might could take place?
I've called them multiple times, and I've had multiple texts.
Are,
So I just keep trying to continue to contact them about that.
are the children, or the young people are they still able to use it like it is now? Okay. Okay, well, just, if you get any more information, could you just pass it on?
I think there's an event, the city's not putting it on, but there is an event there this Saturday, at the skate park through, efforts of Justin Kerr. So they
Okay.
are able to.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else have any additional questions? Is there anything else that needs to come before the council this evening?
I see that y'all are working on a lot of abatement. Could you explain maybe to the public what all is involved in abatement?
I will try to keep it brief. Generally, you receive a complaint or observe a potential violation, we'll use tall grass as our first example. Tall grass is not to exceed 10 inches. Is that right, 10? Okay. And typically, like the letters, we know grass season is seasonal, the growth. So typically when the grass is observed at about 10 inches, a letter is sent to the owner of the property according to the Halifax County tax records. And that letter is stating that we've observed this violation that's cited, and we're giving you 10 days to correct it. Is that right, 10? Okay. If that correction is not made within 10 days, or after 10 days, then our staff conduct another inspection, and at that point, we have the opportunity to abate it, which means we'd deploy our staff to go and cut the grass and charge a administrative fee, and then also the labor and cost for whatever it is, and then place that as a lien against the property. And it's assigned to the property under a lien. Sometimes those bills get paid before they become a lien, and sometimes they don't. So basically, in a simple way, we give the owner an opportunity to do that and if they don't do it, then we have the authority to go in and move to do so. Now that is under, for example, a grass cutting example. Now under a minimum housing example is different. we have to, it's a little different. You still have to give notification, you have to ask for their intent. It requires a significant level of deed research to know who are all the parties of interest in a property. Sometimes it's one sole owner, sometimes it is everyone from immigration when the United States was founded. Like, it's just, you have to give notice to all lawful parties of interest, not just the name on the tax card, before you take any constructive action, such as a demolition activity. Sometimes, like, a house is determined to be in need of repairs before it gets to a substantial condition, but a substantial deterioration is generally considered anything 50% or more than the value of the structure. We have a lot of really old homes in Roanoke Rapids that have not been adequately maintained over the last 100 years. And so the value of those homes and the cost to repair them, generally the cost to repair exceed the value, which makes it possible for demolition activities to take place. But if the city has to proceed after asking or after directing let me take a step back. Before any formal actions are made, there's generally a hearing held at the property, and all the owners and parties of interest are notified of that hearing. If they don't show up to provide access to it, we have to call on Public Works and police to assist with gaining entry to a property. And depending how safe it is on the inside, we may or may not be able to enter, depending on the conditions. But we can't, as a city, go in and say, all right, well, we're going to fix all these issues, the broken windows, the roof repair. We can't do that physically for them like we would cutting the grass. It's a different process, but also it's a different type of investment. The minimum housing program is intended to encourage property owners to keep their properties up to date and try to find solutions. Now, it's the solution piece. It's the issues that individuals experience to gain compliance is really where there's an unmet need here. We can send them letters every day. We can send people letters all the time. But if they cannot physically or financially afford to complete those things, they're at a loss. And so if we have to move to demolish a property, then that does become a lien on the property. We have demolition liens on several properties that we know that more than likely we're not going to recover, which is why you probably heard me say when we talk about some of these bigger properties, or we could bankrupt the city very easily by a few demolitions that are needed, and we don't want to do that. And a lot of times the demolition costs are more than what the property is worth. And so we have been contacted at times about people interested in properties, and then we find out there's $40,000, $50,000 or a medical lien against the property. It remains vacant at that point. And those are just some of the unfortunate consequences that happen. So it's, code enforcement is really, as it can be a great thing, but a lot of it's about education and trying to get compliance. We hear a lot of difficult situations. People don't just get into these situations overnight. There's generally life events that lead to non-compliance, but the process itself is under regulatory authority set forth by the state, and our local ordinances support it. Code enforcement is actually, some of it is optional. We're doing a lot of this when we quite frankly we're not mandated to do it. Now and that's for just generalized code enforcement, but I guess I said I was going to be brief and I haven't been. So have I answered any of this?
She has done a fantastic job of going through that, but let me kind of make some additional comments. So, number one, when we have this discussion, I've been city attorney now since 2019, so what is that? 5 years, 6 years, whatever. Anyway, we have this discussion probably about once a year. And I know, and I don't say that, I don't want that to be taken as me kind of responding to Councilman Jackson asking a question, because I understand why Councilman Jackson asked the question, which is for public information. And so I say that to say that this is not the first time the question has been asked to the public. And if you go back through and you look at the archives of the Daily Herald or Roanoke Rapids Spin, you'll see where this question gets asked regularly, and of course we're on record kind of responding to it. And so I'll say that first, that this is kind of a perennial question that the public comes up with. And two, when we're talking these kind of logistical kind of issues that I can kind of understand from the public standpoint. You see a house with the yard grown up, you see a house that's falling in, you say, well, why isn't that fixed? And when folks like myself or the city manager sit up here and we talk about these logistical issues, you guys don't want to hear about logistical issues. You just want to hear about, okay, how do we fix this? And so, and I understand that. But it's important kind of talking about the different kind of issues that kind of come up in enforcement. And I want to kind of be clear about a couple of things the city manager said. We cannot just go in and clean up a property for several reasons. Number one, the prospective property owners are owed due process. That's the notice aspect. We can't get around that. If we don't give them the notices, send the letter, give them the time to correct it, then the city is incurring liability from that. The second reason is that there is a cost aspect to this. The city can't just invent money from nowhere. We have to pay the employees to go out there. We have to pay for the gas that goes in the lawnmower. Certainly if there is debris that is carted away, we have to pay landfills to take that. We can't just go dump it somewhere and let it rot. And so those kind of logistical concerns are things that I know that folks don't want to hear, and I'm not kind of putting that back to the public, but I'm saying that's the reason why it seems like sometimes things kind of take a while to kind of grind through. You really, in these situations, you have two different kind of scenarios. You have what I would characterize as nuisance abatement, and then what I would characterize as minimum housing code. And so minimum housing code is pretty extreme. You've got to have a residence that has decayed to the extent that it doesn't meet the minimum housing requirements, and I think the key word there is minimum. There's a process for that. Ultimately, we have used that even in the past calendar year, I think, with respect to, I think it was 1407 Forest Street, if that just comes to mind, where ultimately what happens is council will essentially condemn the property and ban anyone from going back over there. Because we had a bad situation over there, and that I think that's been handled to at least to some extent. But you also have the nuisance abatement context. That's more trashy yards, grass growing up. At the end result of that, so you kind of go through that process, the end result of it is the city goes over there and cleans it up, and then we put a lien on the property. We can put $1 million of lien on a piece of property, but if the piece of property is not worth that much, there's really not a practical way to execute on that. And so what I mean by that is, yes, when the liens accrue, the city does have the power to go into a court and ask the court to sell it, and then try to recover the value of those liens. Normally, the city doesn't have to do that because, of course, what we're doing in that standpoint is we're chasing good money after bad a lot of times. That is, we've already spent the money on the nuisance abatement. We're going to go in and try to enforce the lien. That's going to require more cost to the city to do. And again, the chances of recovering that are very limited. The city manager was speaking about and I think one of the things that's all on our mind is the property that's there at Second and Roanoke. We've talked about that here at City Council on the record in the last year. And properties like that, because of the way that they were built, because of the materials that were used in building them, we can't just go take a wrecking ball and knock it down and cart it off. There are environmental concerns. There's asbestos there. There are regulations that we have to comply with. If we don't comply with those, again, we incur significant liability to the city. Even that said, so like I say, that increases the cost of those mitigations. But again, we spend several $100,000 knocking down a building. What do we have at the end of that? We have a spare lot. What is the value of a spare lot on Roanoke Avenue, at Second and Roanoke Avenue? It's not going to meet the value of that lien ever. And so, that's so that is a choice that City Council could make. They could say, well, we want to allocate more money towards nuisance abatement and to tearing down old buildings. Cities do that. But the compromise that's made there is from a practical standpoint, they have to understand that there is no magic way to get the money that you put into this abatement back out of it. And I kind of glossed over one aspect of this. A lot of times the way that these you have a lot of reasons why talking about the grass issue, you have a lot of reasons, and the city manager touched on this, as to why the grass starts growing up in a yard. You can have situations where a person dies and it's heir property, and that's being sorted out in a state. You can have a situation where, divorce is another big change that goes on in folks' life that can kind of lead to a property sitting vacant and kind of growing up for a while. Usually those things on properties that are not just in a terrible state usually end up working out. They may not play out on a timeline that somebody having to live next to it may prefer. But a lot of times those sort out, and any of those liens that accrue usually end up getting paid. And they either get paid in one of several ways. Either somebody ends up selling that property and buying it, and before they can get good title to that property, they've got to satisfy those liens, and we hold them to that. The second thing is if there's value in that property that makes it worthwhile, the county will foreclose on that. And so the county will go through the foreclosure process, and the fines that the liens that we place on property, the costs of those nuisance abatements they are treated the same, they're given the same priority as a tax lien. So for instance, any of that money goes back to the property owner, if there's any surplus funds go to, a mortgage holder or anybody else, the city gets to take and gets paid their liens out of what that foreclosure amount is. And so, like I say, it happens on a scale, for residential property that's not completely in a dilapidated state, with grass growing up, it usually ends up getting paid. The city gets those monies back. For the kind of broader issues of, structural issues, especially with commercial property, that's a lot more of a complicated kind of situation. And so, like I say, it is a perennial problem. Just because it comes up doesn't mean that it doesn't concern council, and that we don't address these issues. So I hope that, like I say, that's a long, and I was even less brief probably than the city manager was, but it is a complex issue, and it's not that we're just sitting on our hands and not doing anything about them. We're doing it in compliance with the law and following through the process with an effort to not cost the city any more money than it already costs, if that makes sense. So. But thank you, Councilman Jackson, for the question, because I think I said perennially, it's a good reminder, especially when we have folks here and kind of paying attention through the budget process as far as why things are the way they are. Because I know that sometimes when the public is, going to work every day and they're taking care of their families and doing all the things that we'd rather be doing than worrying about, derelict properties in the city. Sometimes they can kind of miss when we talk about these things, and so I think I'm not saying that it's not justified that we talk about them regularly. So, thank you.
Okay. All right, once again, anything else needs to come before the council tonight? Call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Steenback. Do you have a second to the motion?
Second.
I think it was Mr. Strickland. Kurt? Okay. Mr. Strickland, all in favor? Aye.